Bathurst, 207 kilometres west of Sydney and Australia's oldest inland settlement. Boomtown Bathurst was the centre of the New South Wales gold rush back in the 1850s, and there are still many reminders of that era to be found there today. The grab for gold continues in another vein at Bathurst today. Men have been bringing their machines to nearby Mount Panorama for over half a century. The mountain is a unique public road course measuring 6.172 kilometres. The peak of Panorama is 830 metres above sea level, and there's a rise of 200 metres between the starting line and Castrol Tower. The fastest part of the course is Conrod Straight, 1.86 kilometres, where the tourists top 280 k's. The James Hardie 1000 is the world's premier touring car race, and today's 24th edition of Mountain Tradition promises to be the fastest and closest contest of them all. The international cast is headed by Spa 24-hour winner Dieter Quester of Austria and Italy's Roberto Ravaglia in a BMW. The AMG Mercedes 190 team is here in force, but above all, it's the Australians who could hold sway today. Peter Brock has won here 8 times in a Holden. Allan Moffat has 4 wins for Ford, but they'll share a Commodore in their first Panorama partnership. This man is the prince of the privateers. Alan Grice has barnstormed his way through Europe and snatched the headlines all season. He's never been more ready for this race. Bathurst 86 marks the return of Nissan with the Australian-developed Skyline Turbo. Factory pace setter George Fury can't see the 2-door Fab 4 being beaten. Volvo is also here with a strong factory presence. Their 2-car team will be headed by talented John Bowe, while Australian champ Robbie Francevic of New Zealand lines up in a Ford Sierra. Henry's Mark is also represented by the laconic Dick Johnson. He won here 6 years ago. 7 Sports, the world's acknowledged leader in motorsports television, welcomes you to Australia's great race, the James Hardie 1000.
Good morning, Australia, and welcome to our exclusive 7-network telecast of the great race, the James Hardie 1000 for 1986. A special welcome to our international viewers across the Tasman in New Zealand, in Britain, in Europe, and in the United States. The great race this year promises to be the most open, the most fiercely competitive in years. V8 Commodores and Turbo Nissans share the front 2 rows of the grid. But there are also 2 BMWs, a Volvo and a Mitsubishi Starion among the top 10 qualifiers in this field of 59. But one man alone has pride of place on pole position, and that's Nissan's Gary Scott.
Qualifying for today's James Hardie 1000 reached the sudden death stage yesterday in Hardie's Heroes. The top 10 from Friday's practice set out in a $20,000 shootout. Weather conditions were cool but fine. John Bowe became the first to improve his time in the Valvoline dealer team Volvo. Alan Grice was the great white hope of the Commodore set in the Chickadee Holden V8. He topped the Friday qualifiers but failed to improve on the mark, which handed the Heroes mantle for 1986 to a Queenslander who now calls Victoria home. Car number 15 is the Peter Jackson Nissan Skyline. At the wheel is Gary Scott. Gary, of course, has fitted into the Nissan team very, very well indeed during 1986 and actually has led George Fury in most of the practice sessions so far this week at Mount Panorama.
Like George Fury, Gary Scott has the benefit of warm tyres. The team surprising everybody this morning with this new innovation. Very Formula One, that idea, as Gary Scott climbs to the top of the mountain in the Nissan Turbo, really screaming. Fastest of the turbo cars throughout the week.
Here he comes across Castrol Curve, using all of the racetrack, then some. Caught the back of it, just kissed the dust out there on the edge of the circuit. Down through Bridgestone. Gary Scott trying very, very hard indeed. Coming down to Valvoline corner. Gary Scott comes out of there, uses all of the racetrack, and he's wound up now.
Scott leaves the braking as late as possible, comes down now into the corner and turns to take the checkered flag at the end of his high lap, puts the front wheel up on the strip there. There's the flag. Let's check the time. Wow, look at the time for Gary Scott. Fantastic stuff.
Gary Scott at 2:17.6, quickest by a couple of seconds. That's sensational.
Yes, Pat, it was a good lap, except I still had cold tyres, which is the problem we've got with this car. It's a bit too light for the compound we've got available, but I'm very happy with that.
Let's take a look how the top 10 will line up today for the great race. Pole position has gone to the Peter Jackson Nissan Skyline number 15. The drivers are Great Scott and Terry Shiel. Position 2 is the Chickadee Commodore of Sydney's Allan, Grice and Graeme Bailey. Third fastest is the second of the Peter Jackson Skylines with Tal Malmo farmer George Fury and 21-year-old Glenn Seaton. From 4 is the NZ Connectors Commodore Car 11, sharing the wheel Larry Perkins and Tasmanian David Parsons. Position 5 is the Valvoline dealer team Volvo number 44. Tassie Terror John Bow shares with Alfredo Costanzo. Starting from 6 in the Motorcraft Shiel Mustang, Queensland's dynamic duo, Tricky Dicky Johnson and Greg Hansford. Position 7 is the Bob Jane T-Mart's Commodore of two-wheeler turn 4, Graham Crosby, and Kiwi sidekick Wayne Wilkinson. 8th posse is the JPS BMW 635 of outgoing Australian champ Jimmy Richards and the talented Queenslander Tony Longhurst. 9th on the queue is the Bob Jane Schnitzer Team BMW 635 with Italy's Roberto Ravaglia and Austrian ace Dieter Cuesta. Rounding out the 10 is Mitsubishi Starion Turbo of Albury's Brad Jones and Japanese sensation Akihito Nakaya. They plan to bid sayonara to the mountain set today.
Overseas drivers have played a large part in past Hardie 1000 classics, but traditionally it's an event that favours the locals, if only due to weight in numbers. Briton John Fitzpatrick became a household name in this country back in 1976 when he nursed the ailing Bob Morris Tirana to victory. A year later, Belgium's Jackie Eakes partnered Alan Moffat in Ford's spectacular 1-2 finish in the Great Race. Fitzpatrick was back again in 1981. He co-drove with Morris and a Ford, and they picked up a second in that accident-shortened event. Their Falcon, though, was trash after the hilltop mishap. Overseas teams dominated last year's outright placing. John Goss and Amit Hana giving Jaguar its first success at the Hardie. The Revelia Chicotto BMW taking second, while Walkinshaw and Percy placed third. This year's European Touring Car Championship has produced the closest racing in the history of the series. BMW, Volvo, Rover, Ford, Commodore and Mercedes have been the outright contenders for the championship, which in the past has either been a Jaguar benefit or a two-horse race between Rover and Volvo. The BMW combination of Roberto Ravaglia and Dieter Cuesta comes to the mountain today with not only previous Bathurst experience, but also points on board in the European Touring Car Championship this season. Ravaglia won the ETC rounds at the Nürburgring in Germany and also the French connection at Nogaro only a few weeks ago, while Cuesta took first in the Spa 24-hour Enduro in August.
I tell you, I like this circuit very much because I like to drive on road circuits, and this is one of the last in Europe. We have just Monaco, and Brno is finished this year, so I like it really to drive here on this circuit.
For the race, I think we have a good chance because the race is 1,000 kilometers and BMW normally is very good in long distance, but in qualify I think it's very hard.
Today also marks the return of Mercedes to the mountain, and once again Bob Jane is the man responsible for the AMG team being here. The two black 190E German compacts will be handled by Franz Klammer, the downhill skiing sensation, and Jorg van Onnes, while the second car will be handled by that Super Kiwi veteran Denny Holm and Andrew Medicki.
I think it's a very nice course. The Nürburgring is only a little bit longer, but this uphill and downhill, it's very interesting and very challenging to me.
The Australians think this is the greatest, but I tell you, it's comparable with Brno, and Brno was an exceptionally nice circuit, very, very fast. This has the fast straight, but not the wiggle woggles that Brno has.
The James Hardie has a reputation for being as Australian as football, meat pies, kangaroos and Holden cars. But the European influx is changing all that, and some people say it's not a bad thing.
Gary Scott, we have a cheque to be presented to you by Mr. Jeff Healy from Channel 7.
Yes, he certainly has, Wilco. Gary, that was a sensational run yesterday. As you know, this is Australia's race, but unquestionably you're Queensland's Hardie's hero. From all of us at 7, congratulations. Here's our cheque for $10,000 with our best wishes for today.
Thank you very much, Jeff, and thank you, Channel 7. It's tremendous for the team, and it's tremendous for me, and last time Nissan were here, we were on pole with George, and I'm very happy to have kept the tradition up, and we're looking forward to a good, clean day today.
And now, high in the air above the Mount Panorama Circuit, we join a man aboard his own helicopter. A man who raced here with great distinction, winning the great race no less than 4 times in the early 60s. Now, a most successful businessman and one of Australia's most innovative motorsport promoters. The man honoured this year as the Grand Marshal for the great race, Mr. Bob Jane.
Thank you, Gary. Great to be here up above Mount Panorama. A great view, a great perspective. And I'm very proud to be the Grand Marshal for 1986. And I've got this to say. Gentlemen, start your engines.
10 seconds away from the start of the 1986 James Hardie 1000 at Bathurst. Racing at Grice, just spread eagles the field. He's gone. And all the cars seem to get away nicely as they head down the front straightaway towards the left-hander. There's Grice chopping straight into the left-hander. And so beautifully he takes it through there as they head up Mountain Straight for the first time. The field goes through without an incident in the first corner. We've got a safe start to the 1986 James Hardie Classic as they head up Mountain Straight towards Bridgestone Corner. Just look at the field sweeping. Grice all the way to the floor, leads the turbo Nissan of Gary Scott. Larry Perkins running in 3rd place. George Fury is 4th. And you can wait as they go through Bridgestone Corner and work their way up to the BP cutting for the reaction as Australia's Commodore leads the Turbo Challenge across the mountain for the first time. Grice, Scott, Perkins, then George Fury in 4th place. Up down to BP cutting and the climb to the top of the mountain.
Look up behind Pete Brock in 05, who had to come from 11th position, an unaccustomed position for him on the grid, and he's already making up ground into about 6th position on the racetrack. Through they go, Grice, Scott, Larry Perkins, Fury, up to the top of the mountain. Fans on their toes as they go over for the first time under real race conditions for 86. My gee, look at the lead that Grice has opened up.
Grice absolutely flying. He's using his 17-inch Yokohama tyres. And the tail end of the Skyline really starting to float around. Behind Brock, we had John Harvey in the number 3 Mobil Commodore, then Dick Johnson. Behind him, John Bowe and Graeme Crosby. This is 2nd place. Perkins is 3rd. And there's the leader, Allan Grice, with around about a 2.5-second gap as he leads on to Conrod Straight. It's the shot from race cam. Midway down Nissan Conrod Straight, coming around to end lap number 1 of 163. And it's Allan Grice in the lead in car number 2, the Chickadee Commodore. Behind him in car number 15 will be it should be Gary Scott in the Nissan, that's correct. Then we've got Larry Perkins in 11. A gap then back to John Harvey and Peter Brock. One of the Benzes in trouble. Car number 14, Franz Klammer and Denny Holm.
He's glanced the safety wall. There's 29, even with bigger problems backing down the road.
Now that's the Van Ommen and Mediki car. So Jorg Van Ommen getting out. Peter Brock very close to the back of the 15 car. And there's the shot from race cam. So Peter Brock goes from a position 11 up to 2nd place in the race after only 2 laps. What a performance from him. Oh, Roberto Ravaglia, Dieter Questa BMW into the fence. That's Roberto stepping over the concrete wall and the front of the BMW looking very second-hand. What a tragedy. And after 2.5 laps of the James Hardie, the International Challenge fizzing.
No trouble for Grice, though. All those worries yet to befall him, and of course he hopes they won't.
There's the Cullen Commodore there back on the road. 4.4 seconds separates Allan Grice from Peter Brock. And Tony Cabbage, Ralph Radburn in trouble in car number 28, the Yellow Pages Commodore. I think it's Tony at the wheel, and it appears as though their race is run on lap 4.
Across the top of the mountain, Peter Perfect, 8 times winner of the great race here on Mount Panorama, still trying to peg back the gap on Allan Grice. At the same time, contain the Nissan Turbo Challenge.
It's Trevor Crowe at the wheel of car number 9 at the moment. Now the question is whether they'll get this car around the 6.172 kilometres of the Mount Panorama course, but look at the dice at the top of the hill between Peter Brock and Gary Scott. They're past Warren Cullen. He's down 1 lap already. And Scotty got balked. A bad run down through the top of Skyline.
He won't be happy with that.
Oh, Mike Burgmann, car number 33, has had a big one down Conrod Straight underneath the JPS bridge. The car has rolled. Burgmann started in the car. Melrose was the rookie driver to have co-driven with him.
Ambulance officers on the scene of the accident, and it's been a bad one, with Mike Burgmann, the driver of the number 33 V8 Holden.
Commodore's running strongly at the front. Allan Grice in the lead. Peter Brock holding down second place. Graeme, by the way, still in the pits. He's been there 4 or 5 laps now, and no sign of any movement. It's a major job they've got to get back and running. There's His Royal Highness, the Duke of Edinburgh, speaking with Allan Moffat in the pit area. Allan will be able to tell him about the finer points of racing around this Mount Panorama Circuit.
There's our race leader, though, Spicy Grice and the Chickadee Commodore coming across the top of Mount Panorama.
Onto the back of the Mobil Matthews car number 19 Commodore, and taking some time to round him up, elects for the brave move on the outside at Skyline, but gets through comfortably.
George Fury, a man with an awful lot of work to do, as we said, in and out of the pits for one quick stop already.
Sensational pictures from Sevens race cam, a new position for 1986 with our fixed camera towards the rear of the cockpit of the turbo Skyline. George Fury in 4th gear across the top of the mountain. This is Castrol Curve, and now fronting at McPhillamy. Look at the ride that George gets. He was pretty unhappy with it on Wednesday, Thursday and Friday.
You can really see the lines that the drivers take, apex to apex.
He said at one stage early in the week, when they were still trying to get the handling right on the car, that the way things were shaping up, he thought he might lob on a barbecue up there somewhere. He was really jumping around. And listen to the gearbox in this car as well. It's not the usual 5-speed Geartrack gearbox in most of these Group A cars. Really crunches through. Listen to this. Clunk. George grabs a look behind the car. And the very rapid Nissan Skyline Turbo off for a fast run down Conrod Straight. What a ride.
Here is an interesting little confrontation in the sand trap at the bottom of Conrod Straight. We've got the Mitsubishi Starion of Brad Jones and the Commodore of Warren Cullen. Hey, there's Dick Johnson. We really haven't sighted Dick for the most part, but he's not in too bad a shape. In about 8th position on the track at the moment, 7th in fact, and making a strong... Oh, hello.
Francovic in trouble again in car 40. What a disastrous day for the big Kiwi.
Well, they've been plagued right from the moment the flag dropped. They've been in and out of the pits no less than 3 times. The race leader is in the pits, Allan Grice. Up go the Jacks. No driver change here as yet. Graham Bailey sticks his head in the car, has a quick... Oh, gee, Jim Richards is in there as well. It's starting to get frantic over there. Quick stop for Richards.
Tony Longhurst just to the right of the car. He won't get in.
Just looking for the gap back now to Peter Brock.
They had problems with their pit stop at Sandown, but that was a good one from the Chickadee Grice team.
Goodness me, 23 coming into the pits. The lusty Allison Commodore has connected the tyre wall in a bit of a hurry to try and get in.
And if it was lusty or just rusty.
And here's Peter Brock making his pit stop in the Mobil car. Plenty of interested onlookers. Oh, gee, Moffat was quickly in the car. Brock using 17-inch Bridgestone tyres. .26 seconds gone in this stop. Car's now been dropped. Moffat grabbing first gear. Moves away 33.04 seconds. The stop for Peter Brock and Allan Moffat, but the car very reluctant to get mobile once more. Now it's away.
Oh, straight off the racetrack for Gary Scott.
What happened there?
Well, it's just as though he missed the corner.
Well, I'll tell you what's happening. He's got Allan Grice bearing down on him in a big hurry. That's why he's got the pressure on.
Loss of concentration, perhaps, as he went into the corner. Too busy taking care of what was in the rearview mirror rather than his line into the corner.
This is the battle for first and second. The man in car number 15 leads the event. Right behind him, Allan Grice.
Through Bridgestone corner, and just look who's closing all over the Nissan as they head up to the top of the mountain. BP cutting. Scotty goes through in 15. Grice shadows him. He'll come out of here.
You don't think Gary would be nervous after what happened at Sandown?
Grice is going to give him no room at all. straight down the inside, make your own arrangements. I'm back in front.
Well, Scott knows he's headed for a pit stop. He's not going to fight Grice at this stage, I wouldn't think.
And Grice is on fresh tyres, remember.
Streaking away, Grice assumes command once more in the great race. Outside of surrendering the lead briefly for his pit stop, he's led from the start.
Race cam from George Fury's car, number 30. Now, is he preparing for the stop? He appears to be messing around with his harness, which he's doing. We're catching you, George.
Yes.
I don't know whether you didn't really want to take that off when you were coming down Conrod Straight, but now he's down to the pit lane. So Glenn Seaton, the 21-year-old from Sydney, will be preparing. And Fred Gibson, team manager, at the right-hand side of the car. This is the sort of activity that a driver has to go through when he climbs into a race car. George will relay any information that he's got about the track, the traffic and the car. Oh, not a bad stop either. 22 seconds. Car number 30.
And here's one of the Merc 190s. The only one left in the race, of course. And Richard, it's the first time we've had the opportunity to see these cars race in Australia.
Yeah, Denny Holm at the wheel at the moment. In Europe, they tend to run a slightly different class structure. Here you have a 2 to 3 litre class. In Europe, it's 1600 to 2.5 litre, and they compete against the 325i BMWs. It's been a very interesting race all year long between the Mercedes and the BMW, and at the moment, it looks to be a man called Winnie Voigt, one of the Works 325i's, that's got the better of the Mercedes and is in fact leading the European Touring Car Championship at the moment.
Denny Holm, veteran of the field, but still knows how to steer a motor car.
Oh, very much so. He, in fact, won the European Touring Car Championship round at Silverstone, the Tourist Trophy, which is one of the most prestigious rounds of the lot. And he won it with Jeff Allan, both of them on pure driving ability. They outdrove the Walkinshaws, the Cicottos, the Revelias, and everybody else. It was a joy to watch, it really was.
Leading the 1986 great race is, of course, Allan Grice, and doing it very, very well indeed in the Chickadee Commodore number 2. And Commodore is only one of a number of marques committed to this 1,000-kilometre event. Let's take a look at what makes the Commodore competitive.
The General Motors line has roared more often at the mountain than any other brand in the 26-year history of the race, with 12 wins. 8 of those belong to Peter Brock, the king of the mountain. Today will be the second Group A attempt for the Commodore Brigade. The Holden Commodore is the all-Aussie favourite. Almost a third of the field will have the V8 growl of the 5-litre beast under their right foot. The Australian-built power plant punches out a massive 420 brake horsepower. It weighs in on the class minimum of 1,325 kilos and uses a $15,000 5-speed Geartrack gearbox. Pulling the Holden to a stop, 13 and 12-inch front and rear ventilated disc brakes, and the power makes its way to the ground via a choice of 17 or 16-inch wheels, 10.5 inches wide. Fuel capacity is 120 litres, and the Commodore is right-hand drive.
Oh, and Peter McLeod in trouble in car number 4. This is McPhillamy at the end of the Castrol sand trap, and the front right-hand side of his car demolished. He's gone into, well, I have a feeling I might be doing a disservice to Peter, because I think he came in and handed over to Glenn Clark. I'm not 100% sure of that, but I know the car made a stop. What a shame. Multiple Australian Gold Star and Formula One champion. Behind him, the Warren Cullen Gary Sprague, car number 8 Super Salvage Commodore. Then Greg Hansford in the Dick Johnson Mustang. And it looks like Cullen's picked up a plastic wrapper or piece of newspaper on the front of the car. But Alfie at the moment running back in 9th position. 51 laps completed. His teammate Graeme McRae, car number 42 with 48 laps up, and the leader Allan Grice has completed 54. Franz Klammer now in car number 41, the Martins filter entry. 190 AMG Mercedes-Benz, co-driven by Denny Holm. Oops.
So now it's stalled. No, they're getting it going again by pushing it. So it has been a very, very long pit stop for the 41 car.
Well, the
pit stops with cars being pushed in the pits. Of course, it's something they don't accept all that readily in Europe. Joining me now is Neville Hayes. And Nev, of course, is a well-known voice throughout Britain, the BBC, all sorts of motorsport, pushing a car in the pits.
Yeah, it doesn't happen very often, and if it does, you're in time to get your hands smacked for doing it.
Your thoughts about picking up cars around the circuit and taking them back into the pits?
Yeah, this is one of the areas, of course, which is totally different here to what you have in Europe. If you go off the road in Europe, then that's where you stay unless you're in a dangerous position. You might get pushed out of the way, but there's no way you get it back and get back in the race. And look at the Japanese driver there, really all but losing the lot there in number 53, the Staran, which so much was expected.
Jaguar won at Mount Panorama last year, but I don't think Jag is going to win this year. Muir in the Goss number 10 car with the trunk up, door open, looking for help. The car is stationary on its way up the mountain straight. Graham Bailey's number 2 car, Allan Grice, continues as race leader. Alan Moffat second in the Peter Brock Commodore. Third is Gary Scott, or Terry Shiel in the car now in the 15 Peter Jackson Nissan. In fourth place, Larry Perkins in car number 11, followed by John Harvey, Jim Richards, Dick Johnson, George Fury, Terry Finnegan, Fred Geisler, and threatening to sneak into that top dozen, Franz Klammer, and Denny Holm in the Mercedes 190E.
Car 15 with Terry Shiel at the wheel, the Nissan turbo car that has qualified on pole position with Gary Scott at the wheel and continues to hold down third place on the racetrack behind the Commodores of Allan Grice and Peter Brock. A big effort, and Terry Shiel, of course, has been, I guess we could call it semi-retirement as far as driving is concerned for the last, well, couple of years, 2 years, I guess. Campaigned very solidly in the old RX-7 days, of course, but we haven't seen too much of him lately. A day of high drama here on the mountain. Of course, in the early stages of the race, we picked up the tail end of an horrific accident towards the bottom end of Conrod Straight involving car 33, the Mike Burgmann Commodore. The car was totally destroyed. Mike Burgmann, 39-year-old accountant from Sydney, was removed from the car, placed in the ambulance and taken to hospital, but it has now been confirmed by officials here at the track that Mike Burgmann was dead on arrival at Bathurst Hospital.
And here comes the race leader, Allan Grice, into the pit area. Pat Welsh there to call the action.
Graham Bailey straight into the driver's seat, as you can see. Grice throwing away gloves in the haste. They're really paying a lot of attention to the back of the car. They have an extinguisher poised over the back of the car. Fuel, as per usual. They're underneath the bonnet now, topping up the oil. But everything seems to be going relatively smoothly. A lot of heat, as you would expect, coming from underneath there. Steam and smoke from around the tyres. The new tyres are on. The car has been started up. And they're away, so the problem, Michael, mustn't be all that bad.
Heading up the hill again towards BP Cutting. There's Bailey going through. Sitting behind him, George Fury. But Fury is down a lap or so, trying to catch up ground, and Alan Moffat gaining on the number 2 Commodore as they swing up to Toledo turn again.
Interestingly, Mike, the fastest man on the circuit so far today has been Allan Grice with a time of 2:18.99. It's a pretty stunning time in race trim.
I think that really goes back to perhaps, Neville, how much Grice has matured as a driver, perhaps even from the first race that you saw him run this year at Monza.
Undoubtedly, he came over there. I don't think anybody would admit that he wasn't anything but underfinanced, and really went out. And the other odd thing that all the drivers have said to me when they've come back over here is that they find it's much more narrow over here, coming back here, than it was in Europe. And oh yes, we've got Larry Perkins' car in for a quick stop. That's lying in 4th place at the moment.
David Parsons has got out of the car. Larry Perkins is back in now.
and rejoins in what was a very efficient pit stop.
Yeah, they've had no problems at all with that car. They would seemingly to be, again, running to a preconceived plan. And once again, I think the secret here is perhaps to try and get that one stop less if you can.
We are behind the Mercedes. Blacks out little to the V8 Commodore in sheer power down Conrod Straight. Moffat coming up behind George Fury. Nissan still looks very, very steady indeed under brakes. There's Bailey going through in number 2.
Peter Brock standing by with the crew. We'll get the stopwatches ready for this and see what sort of a stop they can do. So far they've been very efficient. Moffat out, Brock in. The shot from our second race cam in the side of the car. And they're doing a pad change. They didn't expect to do that, so obviously they've had more brake wear than they anticipated. Off with the cool air box. There would appear to be a problem now with this car. They're pulling the grill out of the front of the car by the look of it.
Yeah, well, the stopwatch is academic now, isn't it?
We'd like to talk to Peter now if we can. We understand that he is listening to us. Pete, Neal here, what's the problem?
There's a leak in the oil cooler. Allan didn't notice it. The temperatures are all okay. So they're just bypassing it right now, which means it's just running, well, without an oil cooler. That's okay. The temperatures are quite low.
Yeah.
I think the guy's about getting me going here.
Okay, we'll leave you to it,
Okay,
Pete.
mate.
Thanks for talking to us.
Righto.
See you later on.
We're down.
Peter Brock out of the pits 6 minutes and 10 seconds stationary while they removed and bypassed the oil cooler. It's Michelle, all right.
Michelle, yeah.
Open face helmet. The jeweller from Brussels. He's been to the mountain before. He came out last year and tried to partner Graeme Moore in an ill-fated Mitsubishi Starion run. And he looks pretty comfortable in the car at the moment.
This race is like the Irishman that won the Tour de France. I tell you, he had to go on a lap of honour.
Now, what's the shape of the car like after you've got back in? Has Greg look after it for you?
Oh, you better believe it, mate. She's brand new.
He's a good operator.
Yeah, he's a good operator. The water temperature's no different. The oil temperature's still the same.
We didn't get a chance to do any split times on him, but how competitive was he with your times?
Yeah, he was doing 23s and 24s. And boy, is there some oil here. Huh.
Yeah, what's the state of the circuit like?
Well, it was all right.
Well, one of your mates in a Ford Mustang, the Anderson brothers, have just spun off into the entrance to the pits.
Well,
and you'll be
not right.
pleased to know that the Wilmington Janssen Jaguar XJS was also in a bit of strife down there. No, Bailey's off in car number 2. Unbelievable bad luck for Graeme Bailey. Now, what exactly does that do to the race order? They had a fair buffer up their sleeve. Allan Grice, meanwhile, has pulled his helmet on and he's standing by to get in the car. Okay, we'll set the stopwatches here and see what sort of a stop Les Small's Roadways team can do. Allan Grice standing by.
This stop is certainly going to cost them dearly, and it's going to open the race wide open again.
It would seem likely to me that what was happening was that the oil is coming out and got on the tyres, which is why he spun.
What is going to be interesting, Harvey is now at the top of Conrod Straight.
Yep.
That big gap, that big buffer of the lap, and then a bit.
Been in the pits now for exactly 1 minute and 50 seconds. They've fired the engine. Out with all of the standby tripods. The jacks are up.
Here comes Harvey along pit straight. Mobil dealer team flags up in the air. Grice heads out the pit lane.
Oh, well, this will be really interesting.
This will put them on the same lap.
And remember that Harvey is at race speed. Grice is going to have to reach it. He spent 2 minutes and 6 seconds in
there
the pits.
There he goes. That's Grice pulling out in front of Harvey. Harvey has spotted the back of the Chickadee Commodore and Cross in for the ride too as they head up Mountain Straight to Bridgestone Corner. Now working their way up the straight. Oh, Harvey goes into the side of Grice. I think maybe Grice was claiming the corner, but...
No, Grice has a problem. He had a problem before. He slowed quite... is it possible to slow rapidly? Anyway, he slowed, and that's really what happened. It really caught Harvey out totally.
Tell you what,
wonder whether he's caused any damage. There doesn't appear to be any guards rubbing on the tyres anywhere. And what has it done to the Harvey Lowe car? They come down off the mountain, down to the dipper. There's Grice going through, and with Pat Welsh in the pits is the man who has been steering number 2, Graeme Bailey.
Graeme Bailey with me now, very exhausted, but there seems to be a problem with the car.
Apparently we've got a slow leak in the dip. The boys were calling me on the radio, but I couldn't understand what they were saying. And I'm too busy driving past here looking for signals and forgot to look at the brake mark at the end of pit straight. I had a bit of a whoopsie, but I think they've topped the diff up, and we should go all right from here on out.
Look at this. John Harvey leading the great race, and sitting right behind him is Allan Grice. This one looks like going down to the wire. Harvey still with a stop to come. Grice putting the pressure on. He's closed that gap to practically nothing at the moment. Lap 105. The 2 Commodore drivers, Harvey and Grice, up front, leading from Gary Scott in the Nissan number 15. Then, of course, Jim Richards in number 1, Dick Johnson in 17, Peter Brock coming back through the field in 5. So how close do you need it? 2 Bridgestone corner, the right-hander swinging up to the top of the mountain. Here they come. Out of BP, heading up to the top of the hill. Harvey down the inside of the BMW. Grice just backs out of there for a moment. Richards gives, I think it's Richards, gives racing room on the inside. And what a race we've got going after 105 laps with all the dramas of today. And this is the gap between first and second in the 86 James Hardie Classic. And Grice on the outside, what a move! Takes him coming across the top of the mountain. So Allan Grice takes back the lead in the James Hardie 1000. Harvey still in second, and third is Gary Scott in the Nissan. 19th outright in the field, and class leader, car number 61, is of course Mike Quinn. And they've had some dramas here over the past few days.
Yeah, well, they pretty much destroyed the car on Wednesday in early practice and had to do a complete rebuild on it to get it up and running. They did well to qualify the car, and they're doing remarkably well at the moment to be leading the 2-litre class and to be, as you said, in 19th position outright. Mike Quinn, of course, brother-in-law of Peter Williamson, who crashed out of the race totally in qualifying on Thursday and is currently still in hospital. So Mike will be out there trying to uphold the family tradition and do well in the great race.
They're leading the Nissan Gazelle at the moment of John Giddings. So Mike Quinn and John Faulkner, proving that if you hang in there long enough and spend the hours, you can come up with results. One man definitely leading there, number 2, Allan Grice in the Chickadee Commodore. About 1 hour and 45 minutes remaining. The car still looking strong despite the problem they had with the leak from the differential, losing some oil. But the man sitting right in behind him again is, of course, the JPS BMW team driver. That's Jimmy Richards in car number 1. Richards down a lap according to the score chart on Allan Grice in car number 2. We're following the Bob Jane T-Mart's Commodore V8 of New Zealand's Graham Crosby and, of course, Wayne Wilkinson. They haven't had the most successful run to date in the James Hardie, but they're climbing back up the field. 15th on the track at the moment, keeping in mind that Cros was able to qualify the car in the top 10 yesterday. A motorcycle racer that has done extremely well. Got off 2, got onto 4, put a roof over his head, and he's been quite a man. Actually visiting our pit area studio at the moment is another motorcyclist who is very much the man of the moment in Europe.
I thought I'd come up and see a couple of my old friends, such as Crosby and John Harvey and a few others. So, it's been an enjoyable day.
Are we ever likely to see Wayne Gardner running around here in a touring car?
I'd like to, actually. I have favoured it for quite a long time, and that's probably why I'm up here, because I do like him, and it's just really have a look and see what it all happens, and who knows, maybe next year I could be here.
We've covered 128 laps in the James Hardie 1000 for 1986, and going through is car 48, and that's the Xerox shop entry of Scotty Taylor and Kevin Kennedy. Commodore, of course, as you can tell from the profile. And today marks a special anniversary for these guys, Mike. They have been driving together in this race every year for the last 10 years.
Yes, it's a great association. They go back a long way. Scotty Taylor, Kevin Kennedy. Obviously enjoy their racing. They don't make it into the spotlight all that often. That's the pity of motor racing. Then again, the whole thing about the sport is the same as any other type of sport. It's who's up there and pressuring for the lead. They come here to enjoy themselves, to finish, and they can plan ahead for the next 12 months. And they're doing a good job here today. Has the Goss Jaguar just behind them.
And in the pits, that's the Lusty brothers, Commodore, Graeme and John Lusty. Something wrong with the gear shift, the gear lever. I think they've changed it during that changeover. Driver change as well. That's car 23.
Graeme, what happened? The gear lever broken.
The gear lever off, and I was supposed to change over to John last time. And we had to grab a set of multi-grips, and I've been changing gears with multi-grips for the last 20-odd laps. But anyway, we're still out there and going. We've got a gear stick back in it now.
They might be dusty, but they're certainly not rusty. Car number 3 in the pits, the second of the Mobil dealer team cars. John Harvey and Neal Lowe. Neal stepping out. Looks like Harvey going out now to do the final stint behind the wheel. Correct. They're still running third on the racetrack. And John Harvey takes over the car for the sprint to the checkered flag.
Times are tough for the turbos. 44, John Bauer.
And of course, John Bauer and Alfredo Costanzo sharing this car. Their second car, of course, driven by the New Zealanders, Graeme McRae and Neville Crichton.
Well, gee, Mike, here's a car that is looming as quite a threat as the race unwinds. There are a couple of laps down on the outright leaders at the moment, but Graham Moore and Michel Delcourt, a former Mobil dealer team car, which has been really worked over by Graham Moore and is performing exceptionally well.
Well, Michel Delcourt, of course, requires no introduction to European race fans. A big, burly Belgian with an iron foot, and he can drive just about anything, Neville Hay.
He can. I mean, can you imagine a big man like that as a jeweler dealing with ladies' trinkets? The mind boggles, doesn't it? But I don't know. Either way, the man actually does run very well, very hard. But I think we've got Grice on his way to the pits.
Car number 2, Allan Grice, race leader, into the pits. Just for a top-up, see whether they go to the diff of the car. The change of rubber for the sprint to the flag. I think Grice will stay in the car. They're holding a slender lead over John Harvey and Neal Lowe in car number 3, the Mobil dealer team Commodore V8.
It's a pretty critical stop, Mike. They've got actually about a lap lead now, but they can't afford to mess about because both the Commodore and, for that matter, the Nissan aren't far behind, and that sort of stop leads me to believe that they've no further problems with oil coming out of that diff.
23 seconds, the pit stop. So 3 parts of a lap between first and second, and a further 3 parts of a lap between second and third.
Coming up to Bridgestone Corner, the pride of Queensland, the top banana, as they say. Dickie Johnson carrying race cam yet again. It's become part of your life, Dick. You've got to pay attention. I was saying race cam really is a part of your life these days.
Yeah, not bad either, mate.
You know, a lot of people keep asking us whether or not having to talk and concentrate at the same times, do your lap times drop off?
No, not really. Maybe a tenth of a second or so. Depends where it is and what I'm trying to think of, because sometimes the dribble I put in my head doesn't fall out at the right time.
I have the same problem, mate.
I think a lot of journos do, mate.
At least I'll admit to it. I was just thinking that as far as this race is concerned, we're getting down now with probably an hour and 5 still to run. And I know things can go wrong in a race, and one doesn't really want to talk about things that can go wrong, but if the car is still running there strongly, there's a couple of question marks over a car or two in front of you. You're looking pretty good for maybe a top 3 finish.
Well, mate, I'm damned if I know, but this is no different now to what it was when we started the race, except that the oil temperature's come down a bit because I've knocked the revs off a bit, and the water temperature's down a little bit. The oil pressure's still the same. We've tipped a heap of oil and it's probably got heaps too much in there, but, you know, I can't fault anything else. Everything else is brand new.
You're trying to tell me it's good to honk with a Henry?
Well, I just hope it keeps honking.
Larry had some drama with the gearbox in the Commodore, as you know, but now you're back out and circulating. You're making up some ground?
Well, yes. I mean, it's going as good as ever, but it's very difficult to make up ground in terms of laps. Now, we're circulating in the 19s and 20s, which is as good as the front pace, but, you know, when you've lost, I don't know, 3/4 of an hour or something, well, there's no way you'll make up much ground.
Oh, look, okay, look, I'll talk you around the track here.
Terrific.
That's out of 3rd into 4th at 6.5. I've got a Nissan in front. That's 6.5 in 4th into 5th. I'll stick to the left-hand side of the road here. And I'm just featheringly put a little bit there on those bumps because I don't want the engine to just rev up, so I'm just anticipating. It's quite airborne just up here. Second up there. Over the anchors about here. Back to 4th. 3rd. 2nd down here. Turn the nose in. Avoid the rough stuff on the outside of the track there. Have a look at the lap board. 20.4, not bad. 11th, 3rd up here. Hold the brakes. Back to 2nd. Get the apex. Not bad. Not that good. And just let it run wide without hitting the rough stuff. Now, usually if I'm going well, I change gears about that flag marshal back there. And wait for some people up here I know from the house there. Saves boredom, you know. I use top gear here because it saves the engine a bit. Then back to 3rd here for this corner. It's a very tricky one. Close in, flat, and just keep it on the bitumen as you see there. Keep to the high side here. So you go across under that bit of earth there, out wide. Very close there. Boot into it there. Close. Out here in 2nd, 6.5, out wide. If I get it right, I can go through here and keep it flat. It's a bit of a worry. Moffat rings I'm crazy doing it, but you can. And just try and float it through these corners. It's only 5,000 revs, but the main thing is to give your car a very easy time, and as you can see, you can still go fast. Now, I brake very late here. There's a lot of time to be made up just here. Touch the accelerator there, and just sort of back to 3rd just before I get to this earth bank. Keep it very close there. Cross the dipper, down here, keep it flat, in 3rd. A lot of people use 2nd there, I don't. Back to 2nd for this one though, and then wide, and very close in there, and let it run out wide. And that's one lap of Bathurst.
That's terrific, Peter.
Okay.
I hope you keep clawing your way back up. We've got some pictures of Dr. Eric and Bev and everyone in the pits following you going around the circuit. You want to send them a wave?
Yeah. Oh, down here?
Yeah.
How are you?
Super. Oh, we've had one upside down in the bottom turn. Car number 87. Goodness gracious.
Yes, it's the Brian Bolwell, Tony Farrell, BMW 323. And it looks as though he's just lost it under brakes coming into the bottom at Conrod, and the front wheel has caught the inside ripple strip and the car has rolled over.
He's okay though. Steps out of the car. Crowd give him a huge hand.
Got 8 laps to go, and I believe the car is running perfectly. So we're certainly not hoping for problems. We don't think we'll have any problems.
How's the gap? Is it maintaining itself, closing or opening?
No, we're maintaining about the same gap, 1st to 2nd and 2nd to 3rd.
You elected very early in the week to go for a conservative setup. You didn't do a lot of fiddling with the car. It's obviously paid dividends.
Yes, we took a guess at the workshop in Melbourne, and I think we've made 2 spring changes since we came up here. We're quite happy with the way the car was going, and here's the result of it.
Gear change for Peter Brock as he moves up to Toledo Tools' turn, brings him up to the top of the mountain. Watching the footwork on Brock, on the pedals. very, very comfortable behind a car doing his thing is Peter Brock. And Brock at this stage will probably finish in 5th place in the 05 car. Coming out of Valvoline corner, and one guy I just can't help but feel so happy for today is Les Small, who has always had this great faith in Allan Grice as a driver, told me early in the week, and in fact he has probably chewed his nails down to his elbows at this stage. How does it feel, Les?
Oh, it's not too bad at the minute, Mike. We're sort of hanging in there, just hoping for the best. As you know, we've led many of them before. We haven't got to the flag first, so we've just all got our fingers crossed.
He deserves to win this, doesn't he?
I think so, yeah. He's driving probably better this year than he has, you know, ever before, I guess. And the European experience has really helped him.
There's Graeme Bailey. He can't believe this. Good old Graeme. The fellow who went also to Monza and to Donington and Hockenheim with Allan. Had a couple of offs into the sand traps, blamed himself for it before everyone else did, and said he learned so much. Came back to Australia and demonstrated to everyone in the Australian Touring Car Championship that he'd learned a lot over there. Grice comes out of the corner, acknowledging the flag with 1 lap to go. Heading up mountain. Straight. There he goes. He's going to get a wave off to everyone before this is over. He's watched so many drivers do this for so many years. Hands are ready at the top of the mountain as Grice heads up to Bridgestone Corner for the final time. And of course, after the race is over, the cars are pulled straight in at the back of the pit, so you don't really get a chance on a cool-down lap to acknowledge the waves of the crowd. Up to BP Cutting for the final time. The Sydney privateer, Allan Grice, driving Graeme Bailey's Chickadee #2 Commodore V8. Coming up to Toledo Tools Corner, the right-hander. Wait for the reaction of the spectators along the top of the mountain. They love him. Here he comes. Allan Grice, a man who went to Europe this year to try and prove something. He certainly has done that, and he's proved an awful lot more here today. As the fans acknowledge, Grice coming across the top, out of Castrol Curve, down to the S's. Through Bridgestone Corner. To the dipper for the final time. Now on his way down to the left-hander. And here he comes. Through Valvoline Corner, Nissan Conrad straight for the final time. You can almost coast home to victory from there.
I know how happy he must be, Mike, but this, I've never seen anybody wave and cruise round on his last lap. He's got 96 seconds in hand, which is probably enough, but I should think it's risking it just a little bit, isn't it?
Well, I don't know. It's 16 years without a result here. He's finished a second and a third. But you could shut the engine off from there and make it all the way down to the checkered flag. Allan Grice leading, 96 seconds clear of Harvey. A long gap back then to Gary Scott. The last corner comes up as Grice and the Chickadee Roadways Commodore V8 hits the last turn, straightens it out. Checkered flag at the ready, and the Aussie privateer, the battler, cracks it for the Hardie 1000 at Mount Panorama, and the crowd has erupted. He's done it. Allan Grice of Sydney takes the 1986 James Hardie 1000 Classic. Second place will go to John Harvey and Neal Lowe in the Mobil Holden dealer team Commodore #3. Third place will go to Gary Scott and Terry Shiel in the Nissan Skyline Turbo #15. Fourth to Dick Johnson, car #17. Fifth place to Peter Brock, and sixth place to Jimmy Richards.
And Allan Grice makes his way. And the cheers speak for themselves for Grice here on the victory dais with Graeme Bailey. A phenomenal effort. Well done. And before we speak to Grice, I think we should hear from Mr. John Reid, the chairman of James Hardie Industries.
Congratulations, Allan and Graeme. A fantastic performance, and one that obviously everybody's very pleased. Well done. Nice to see you back up here again.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Distinguished guests, a lot of friends down there, thank you very much for your reception. Thanks. The three main things that happened or that were given to me today was a superb motor car that copped a caning all day, and there's nothing wrong with it now. And Les Small's engines, I had the best engine out there as I've had for quite some time. And thank you very much, Graeme. And the other thing that was very apparent, Yokohama came through again today, and we had the best tyre out there. Thank you very much, and thanks for your help.